to our first. Welcome everyone to our first in a series of empathy summits produced by the Empathy Center and the Center for Building a Culture of Empathy. I'm Kathy Kidd, your moderator for the day, and I'm a social worker and therapist. I volunteer as the National Program Coordinator for the Peace Alliance, and we're hosting the first hour of today's show. I'm also a volunteer with the Empathy Center, and I'm an Empathy Circle facilitator trainer with the Center for Building a Culture of Empathy. I'd like to introduce Edwin Rush. He founded the Center for Building a Culture of Empathy to promote and foster the value and experience of empathy. Edwin is building a movement to support a global culture of empathy. If you come to some of our empathy circles, you'll see people attend from all over the world. Edwin and his brother Charles Rush are establishing an empathy-based educational retreat center in Santa Barbara, California, in the United States. A major aspect of the retreat center will be working to bridge personal, social, and political divides through the use of mutual listening, empathy, constructive dialogue, and education. Edwin was also an empathy candidate in the Democratic primary for California's 8th Congressional District last year in 2022. So Edwin, do you want to give some opening remarks and then we'll get started?
Yeah, thank you, Kathy, and welcome everyone. So glad to see everyone at this first of our series of bi-monthly empathy summits. We're going to be holding these every 2 months and be eventually next year holding one at the Empathy Center, which in Santa Barbara, which is, you can see in the background behind me. It's a 35-acre space behind Santa Barbara, has about 55,000 square feet, and we're really excited about holding these empathy circles online and then holding them in person in perhaps the summer, fall of next year. I'd just like to begin with to thank all of our volunteers. This is a free empathy summit, this series. We're not charging anything. It's all done by volunteers. And I want to thank all the volunteers who are helping out to organize this and be speakers, and especially Kathy Kidd, who's done a huge amount. Thank you so much, Kathy. Yay! Let's give her a round of applause here for all the hard work she's been doing. She's been working really hard to put all this together and to moderate today. So grateful for all the work that you're doing and all the volunteers. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Kathy, and I hope everyone enjoys today's summit.
Thank you, Edwin. So let's get started. So today you're going to hear how empathy contributes to our well-being by decreasing polarization and constructively approaching conflict, thereby improving our relationships and building close-knit, caring communities, leading to a healthier society. And joining me are BJ Guyden and Liz Gannon-Graydon. Let me tell you a little bit about each of them. BJ is a credentialed distinguished mediator and has 20 years of experience as an innovative, transformative mediator. She's a certified legal assistant and is certified with the U.S. Post Office as a senior federal mediator. She's certified in human resource management and training and development. She has hosted a radio show called ATM, Ask the Mediator, and she's also an Empathy Circle volunteer and facilitator. And then Liz Gannon-Graydon, Peace Alliance board chair and co-founder and president of What Better Looks Like. It's a nonprofit organization that taps into the creative potential of people to help solve problems in their local communities, and whose core work is to foster the development of beloved community. And Liz is going to speak to the roles of listening, empathy, and dialogue in fostering the beloved community. So I'm going to start with BJ.
Before we do, can we have our sponsors? I just wanted to have a screen share.
Thank you so much.
I'm going to do a quick screen share of that.
Yes, thank you.
So if you just want to give them a round of attention.
Yes. Thank you, Edwin. So, of course, Center for Building a Culture of Empathy is the volunteers that are help to make this happen. Our second hour is co-hosted by Victoria Coleman and her guest speakers with Foundation for Developing Compassion and Wisdom. Peace Alliance is the first hour host. We're sponsored by the Listening First Project, National Coalition for Dialogue and Deliberation. Courtney Breeze is here to speak today. Conflict Transformation, Peace Building and Security is a European organization that has also been partnering with us in different events. The International Listening Association is part of our partners. And if you would like to be our partner, we'd love to have you. We'll add your logo to all the work we're doing. And we're sponsored by Potluck Action, which is an empathy organized group of, it's a nonprofit. So yeah, thank you. So we were just talking before we started. If we make any mistakes, we'll correct them in the moment, because vulnerability is a great role model for people. So I was struck by something BJ said to me a year ago that just really hit me. It was so simple yet so profound. She said empathy equals equity. And I've asked her to share a little bit more about how she came to this. Just, go ahead, BJ, just share about it. You know how struck I was by it. Oh, BJ's muted.
Good morning, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. And I just like to thank you, Kathy, for all your hard work and everything that you've done and your patience. And Edwin, thank you for your vision, because we know that empathy listening circles will be a global phenomenon, and it starts right here in California and all over the world. So I just like to say, for me, what I can say is that what is empathy and equity? That came about when I was facilitating during Women's Day, March the 8th, I facilitated a training with my cohorts in India. And that was one of the topics. So that's how that came about. But what I can say for what is empathy and equity? The quality of being fair and impartial, equity and treatment. It refers to fairness and justice for all people, not just some people, no matter how they identify. In this country, I can say we are on the fast track back to the past when it comes to the laws in this country. Women's reproductive rights, education for Black and Brown students, LGBTQ rights, and more. I can go on. But equity means providing the same for all people. Equality means providing the same for all people. Equity means recognizing that equity means recognizing that we do not all start from the same place. Yeah. And we must acknowledge and make adjustments to the imbalances. And there are several imbalances, especially in this country. In education, what I can say is that all students should have access to resources and opportunities, and they do not, especially if they're special needs kids or in an environment where they need additional services. In the workplace, what I can say, it means ensuring that all employees are treated with dignity and respect according to all of Title VII issues, and that doesn't happen often. And right now, what I can say is that regarding remote workers and workers who are on site, making sure that they're treated equitably also. So I'd like to make it interactive and have people chime in on what their thoughts are about that.
They'll have to put it in the chat. Everybody's muted except for the speakers. Yeah, if you could put in the chat anything you want to say about empathy equals equity. And we'll come back to that. And BJ, you can read more about what people are posting. Anything else you want to say? Yeah,
what I'd like to say is that, right now, what I was going to say is not what I want to say because of the laws that are changing right now and what the Supreme Court is doing, and an effort to keep it real and transparent, because that's the only way I know to be, is that it seems like we're moving backwards, So having empathy and equity for processes that you have very little control over can be very interesting. It's just kind of like right up there with difficult conversations, How do you make that happen? And how do you listen effectively when you don't agree with what's happening? So I just think that we need some changes in this country, and it starts at the top and goes down, and who we elect into office. And, equity and empathy means different things for different people. But what I can say is that your perception is 100% your reality. So I'll leave it right there. What I want to say that knowledge speaks and wisdom listens. And in the words of James Baldwin, who's one of my favorite people, not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. And that's by James Baldwin. I'll leave that there.
That's great. Did you want to read? It looks like some people are posting. Did you want to read anything from the chat?
Okay. Says, oh, it's going really fast. If you really perceive another person, you perceive equality. That's powerful. And I agree, because there are times and situations where it doesn't matter who's right or who's wrong. It's about what's right and what's wrong. And in those situations, there are times when you just don't do anything, because doing nothing could be the best thing to do.
Mhm.
Also very relevant, James Brown, nothing, not yesterday, empathy. It's going kind of fast. I want to go back. It says empathy plus compassion guides the path to equity.
I like that.
And when you consciously co-create our tomorrow, and everyone's tomorrow must include empathy and yesterday. That's really good. That's powerful.
Yeah.
I love your brain. Oh, me too. What
Ah,
I have, I'd like
yeah,
to.
yeah. Well,
Thank
let's move
you.
on. Let's move on. But thank you, BJ. I do love that you keep it real. I think your voice is very important in our world today, and certainly in the empathy circle movement.
And for everyone
So,
that's here, I'm sorry. I'm glad that you're here, and please consider joining the empathy family. I never thought that I would find my tribe within the empathy listening circle, and this is my tribe. We don't all look alike. We don't all have the same beliefs, but we are combined and connected with our energies. I'll leave it there.
thank you, BJ. I definitely feel connected to you and all the people that have joined this movement, and the future people that will join this movement. So Liz was sharing a story with me recently. She's a storyteller, a great storyteller. She was talking about how empathy creates well-being and equity for all, because, for example, if we had empathy, we would allow no child to go hungry. Do you want to share a little bit more about that, Liz?
Yeah, I will. And I know hi, everybody. I echo BJ's gratitude for everyone who put this together. And I'm going to weave a few threads in a couple of minutes. And my father was a civil rights activist in the 60s. And so his great teacher was Dr. King. And from the age of 4 on, he really trained me that the work we're here to do is to create beloved community. And so that there's a clarity. The definition I use is the one that Dr. King said, which was, beloved community is a society where caring and compassion drive political policies that would support worldwide elimination of poverty, hunger, and all forms of bigotry and violence. So that's kind of in my forming definition. And for many reasons, I decided in the month of May to take a 500-mile pilgrimage around New York, where I live. I intended to do it in Spain, for those of you who know the Camino, but I couldn't get to Spain. So I did a 500-mile pilgrimage. And as I was walking the streets around my neighborhood, the one thing that I didn't expect was how much death I saw. You know, you walk in the streets and you see a little bird in the street, or a squirrel that's been hit by a car, or possums. And I started to contemplate that. And very early in my trip, I was walking up the street and I saw walking up the sidewalk, and I saw in front of me what I thought was a dead squirrel. And my practice has been, if I see anything, any beautiful little animal, I stop and I say a little prayer and just sat with them. But as I got closer, I realized it was not a dead squirrel, but it did appear to be a squirrel who was dying. There was a very tall tree, and it looked like he had fallen out. And he was struggling to move a little, and I could see him trying to move towards the grass. And I think he had probably broken his neck, because he could move other parts of his body, but he couldn't move his head. And then he made a really loud cry that I had never heard a squirrel make. And I just sat there and I didn't know what to do. And then as I saw the tree, a second squirrel had started to come down the tree and then stopped when they saw me. And I thought, that squirrel needs to do something, but they're never going to move while I'm here. So I moved about 25 or 30 feet away, and I just watched. And the second squirrel got on top and just kind of seemed to be doing some kind of ministering, and then started tugging the other squirrel towards the grass. And at one point they stopped, just because there was a person walking up the same sidewalk and they seemed kind of oblivious to what was going on. So the second squirrel moved just about a foot away and then came back. And I still get so tender when I tell it, Kathy, because then what happened was the squirrel, I don't know how they did it, managed to pull them on their back and took the squirrel up this very tall tree, just carried it and stopped every few branches to just kind of check. And I don't know what happened to the squirrel, but what struck me was there was a cry out loud and it was heard and the squirrel came down. And that same time, I was running what we call a Hope Story Circle, and a dear friend of mine told me his story about growing up in circumstances that were really not conducive to his thriving. But he had a relative come and get them out and into situations where they were able to thrive. And what it struck me when I was trying together with the beloved community is that listening and hearing and understanding of someone's circumstance and connecting with them, but that shouldn't be random, right? I think that's what I loved about what Dr. King said, that we should be creating it on purpose as a society where we make sure everyone, as Dr. King said, has what they need to thrive and survive. And I do think, as BJ, as you said, that it's empathy. That's the first key, because in order to create those societies and policies and thriving, we have to hear another person, connect with them, and care what happens to them. So yeah, that's the story that I wanted to share with you. And I'm so grateful to you for inviting this conversation and welcoming me into it.
Thank you, Liz. So we're going to move on, but before we do, is there anything else you want to say, BJ?
Oh, no, I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you, BJ. I think this is a great way to start off what we're doing today. So my next guests, I'm very excited to introduce them to you. Wendy's going to put a link in the chat to a 30-minute YouTube video that I would love everybody to watch and share. This video explains the continuum of violence that caused the genocide. There were steps that took to get to genocide in Rwanda, and the continuum of benevolence, which brought them out of that situation into empathy and forgiveness, which is what they're going to talk about today. And I've come to believe that Rwanda is a cautionary tale, not only for the United States, but many places around the world, if not almost every community, because of the polarization everywhere. And the continuum of violence is something I'd like to see us work on in this country and everywhere. And in one documentary I watched about the genocide in Rwanda, one of the genocide perpetrators said that if they had come in together in their community like they're doing post-genocide, the genocide would have never happened. And so I'm going to turn this over to Merve and Jeremy, and they're going to tell us a little bit about the process that happened after the genocide. So thank you, Merve and Jeremy. Over to you.
Thanks. Thanks very much, Kathy. It's been a pleasure working with you the last few months. To get ready for today, it's a pleasure to meet all of you virtually. We invite you to come visit us here in Rwanda to see the reality, but for right now, we're going to talk about it. And the video does explain a lot about the genocide of what happened here 30 years ago, which we're not going to discuss that much today, more the aftermath of what happened afterwards. My name is Jeremy Solomons. I'm a global leadership consultant and peace activist based here in Kigali. And my wife.
Hello, everybody. I'm Merve Gakubanik. I'm studying mental health counseling. I'm one who survived genocide, 1994. I lose my father, and I lose my 3 brothers. I lose a friend and a family. I lose home, but I have a new home.
So what we'd like to do for the next 25 minutes or so is I'm going to interview Merve, ask her a series of questions, and we're going to allow some time at the end for you to ask questions. We probably won't be able to monitor the chat, so Kathy, if you could help us with that, or please come on audio or put your question in the chat when we've finished our more formal interview. So there will hopefully be a chance for you to be able to respond and ask questions. First question, Merve, we're talking about something that happened nearly 30 years ago. What was it like right after the genocide?
Thank you. Actually, after genocide, it was not like great as a survivor. It was everyone have a different emotional reaction after genocide. Some of us was feeling grief, anger, shame, sad, pain, and some us we feeling survivability and numbness. It was difficult at that time to understand or to picture what happened about after genocide. It's really hard because, as I saying, we have different reaction. Some of us were really not accepting why we survive. We just have guilty. We just feeling anger, sad, but it was difficult. Yeah.
So the killing stopped after the murderous 100 days, which again, we talk about in the video. For those of you who don't know, nearly 1 million people were killed in just over 3 months. The killing stopped, but did you and your family feel safe?
Oh, no, we're not feeling safe, even COVID stopping. We doesn't feeling safe because I just remember how our neighbors treating us after genocide. We was worried again, and then I remember some of our neighbors, because after genocide, we don't know how much people survive. We don't know how much people dying. We still really in a question. We asking in ourselves, maybe some people, our family or our friend, we will meet again. And I remember how our neighbors treating us in the midnight, because it was a little village, and then we stay worry, and in the midnight, some neighbors, they come our home, and they send in the night, they sending a tract paper in under for the door. They saying, okay, we regret why we didn't finding you guys to killing you in the genocide, but we hope we'll catch the right time to killing you, and we are sure no one gonna survive. So it was after genocide. We're not feeling safe, even killing stopping. We still worry, we still doesn't really have feeling safe, even if it's stopping, but we keep getting paper making us worry, they tricking us bad. And sometimes in the midnight, they putting stone in our house. And then you don't know who did that, but we are sure 100% it was our neighbors, but we can't finding who is that. But we know is some killing us people, but you can't fixing this person because they do when we're sleeping. It was in the dark at that time, and we don't have much electricity. So we doesn't feeling actually safe, even to killing us was stopping. Yeah.
So given what happened, for you and your family and the country as a whole, how was it to try and understand, but then accept what happened?
Again, it was hard. My sister and I remember we doesn't accepting what happened many years ago. We always going on gate. Actually, we don't have gate on the street. We was stay near the street, and then we sitting on the street. We waiting our father. We think maybe one time he will come to us, and then we saying, maybe he just go hiding in another country, maybe escape somewhere, but one time he will come to finding us. He know he have kid, he have wife, he have family, and then we doesn't accepting he dying, we doesn't accepting my father is gone. And then always we sitting there and then we talking each other. We've been in the street like 3 hours waiting him, and everyone was really have a trauma, and no one really realized we did that. We waiting my father 17 years actually, we waiting him, but my sister and I, we just really have sadness in our side, in my heart, even in her heart, and we just really feeling pain, and we just really was too hard to accepting, but I'm glad finally we accepting. Yeah.
So even though you didn't feel safe, it was hard to accept. How did you get life back to normal? How were you able to try to come to a place of normalcy again?
It is hard to become a normal life after you have passed like that. And I remember after genocide, my mom, she was still young, and then she was a strong woman. As I remember her, as I picture that picture of the genocide, she tried helping another kid who doesn't have parent, lose parent in a genocide. And I remember we was have small house, and she bring more than 40, we was kind of 46 people in one house. And then I saw her, how she treating us. We started sharing together history, and we was in the house together, and then we say, we are not alone, survive. And then sometimes we have food, sometimes not, because, 56 people, 45 people, it was too hard to finding food to give them. And it was honoring my mom, who helping us to getting food, who treating us as child, who's surviving. And then when my mom wake up in the morning and she going finding food to us, I remember sometimes she don't want to back her home because she don't finding anything to give us. And then it was kind of offering, because everyone who doesn't family, I remember they coming right away our home. We was 36, and we started sharing our story, and then we start to be open each other, to telling where you hide, how you survive. And then again, we're feeling it's kind of normal life back, even if we have pain, but we saw each other, how we are home, how we collaging together, how we take care of each other. We feeling like we're getting a normal life. We say, okay, we survive, we getting a normal life. No one gonna dying again. It was kind of, to me, that time, I feeling like we're getting a normal life. Even if it was quickly to be together, but I just feeling it was normal life to me.
Thanks, Karajin, for your comment. After trauma like that, there is no back to normal. The whole world turns sideways, so you just learn to walk on walls. Mm-hmm. And just a quick response to that, what if there are no walls left? Everything was turned upside down, everything was destroyed. The nearest analogy would be what happened in Europe after the Holocaust. So the country was just completely devastated. Yeah. So point taken, is normal is a relative term in terms of that. So the topic today is around empathy. It's been 29 years. Can you tell us a bit more about your journey to empathy in terms of, particularly with the perpetrators? Can you tell us more about that, about your journey to empathy?
Actually, to me, empathy is after 30 years ago, and I saw, to me, it was to reasoning what happened and to accepting what happened, and to just see the people as human beings to me. And again, I just saying, let me forgive them, but I'm not gonna forget. I just decide to forgiveness people. And then I saying myself, I want to be nice people. You can be nice people if you don't understanding empathy, what's meaning to you. If you can't forgiveness people, you don't know how you have empathy inside to you. And then I say, my journal, it was difficult to me after genocide, but I want to be free to receive peace in myself, because when you have anger, when you have guilty, when you don't have happiness inside, when you stuck in your past about our history, and I say, okay, I want to be nice people. I want to opening my heart again. I want to see them as a human, not to see them my enemy. I don't want to stay always judgment people. I say, no, I want to be nice people too. I don't want when we meet them and when we, still pain, still judging them, blaming them. I don't have nice life because of them. And then I saying, let me forgive them, even if they're not coming to me to saying, I killing your family, I destroying your life. They don't do that, but I want to free my heart. I want to get peace inside myself. I want to shining. I just say, let me treat sadness in my heart, anger. I just want to getting beautiful, right things. And I say, okay, I'm gonna say right now, I'm going to talk to them. Let me be who one, as I saw them as a human being, let me step to go to them, to talk to them, to showing them I love them, to showing love, to showing peace. I want peace. And then I say, I don't want enemy to start connected together. And then 26 years ago, my mom, after genocide, my mom, she have run in a village, and she gives some guys who killing our family, but we didn't know he killing our family. And he was working to my mom, and then after to work, he was tired, and he was pressed of my mom. And then my mom say, okay, you're working to me today, but I want to buy something for you to drink, and then I pay you. And then my mom buying him a beer. There was with another people working to her. And then he told my mom, I saw you, you have kind, you have beautiful heart. You're so nice. I'm gonna tell you, and I'm really, if you accept my apologize, I killing your son. I saw you the way you treat me, the way you have empathy to another people, to your enemy who's throwing your family. But I killing your son. I want to show you where I putting him. I was in prison 12 years, but no one know I killing your son. So my mom, she was become cry, she calling us, and then the man, we go in the village, and then we finding really where he putting my brother, 26 years, and then we take him in memory genocide as another people. And then it reminded me in myself, because when I meet him, he was worried. And then I saw him as a human again. And then I say, I understand, I know, I'm not judging you. It was happened. And then my mom, when I look at her, how she's wanted peace with them like me, how she's wanted to connect with them. It was again empathy. You can't be nice people if you don't understand empathy, what's meaning. And then I saying to me, everybody needs to understand what empathy means. If much people around the world, we value and we accepting our hearts to feeling empathy, it's really great. And then I saying to forgive people, to stay nice, to connected with our people storing our family, and to decide to not have enemy. That was empathy to me.
Thanks, Chris, for saying that. You can't be nice to people if you don't understand what empathy means. And I think you agree, it's not something that's cognitive, it's something that's deep in your heart, what you said about your heart wanting to be free.
Yeah, exactly. As I say, it's come from heart. Really, you can't understanding. No one can tell you empathy is something like that, and then you say yes, yes, without opening in our heart. Because since I get my life back, to not stuck in my past, I saying let me understand in myself to be a nice person, to not judging people, to not creating enemy. I decide to know much people, to have a friend, to leave anything dark in my heart. And then I let my heart shining because I'm moving something dark in my heart. When I start deciding that, I feeling empathy to me, because our neighbors, they have kids the same age like me. That time they feeling ashamed what the parents them do to us, but we didn't talk because we was worried that time. But the way I understand inside my heart, I should really understand them, forgive them, getting peace together, and then to share with them empathy, what's meaning. It was really come from our heart. Yeah.
So given that, you've come on this journey in the last 30 years, this personal journey to a place of peace and empathy for yourself, what about the country? I mean, Rwanda is the fastest growing economy in Africa. Kigali is the safest city in Africa. But what about the legacy of the genocide, particularly in relation to trauma? We have many professionals here. How do you see the country now after nearly 30 years?
As I saying, I see the country, we have much people, we still dealing with the trauma, because we have much people have trauma. And the country, the way we really communicate each other, we have a system here, we communicate, there is something we call umuganda, to meet each other. If we, like 20 house together, we meet every end of the month. We call umuganda, to make the people survive and the killer to become one person, and to sharing our problem, to again to not to see who gets to genocide, who killing us, to become as human together, not to see each other as enemy, something like that. We decide it's a system of country. We talking what's going on in the country as friend, as neighbors. We share a problem. We talking different things, and the gachacha helping us before Umuganda coming. Some people, they was feeling the guilty, and then they say they can go in the gachacha where the people meeting, and we have people judging them, and they helping us to understanding each other, and to make each other to understanding each other, and to forgiveness, how we can forgive our people they killing us. And it was something like that. And now country is great. I'm feeling safe, and I decide after genocide to see another people, as I saying, we're dealing with the trauma, and to talk with them, to understanding each other. I remember last week I was with Jeremy to Memorial Genocide in Nyamata, and I saw one woman, she told me every Sunday she come to visiting Memorial in Nyamata because of her mother, she's there. That was trauma to me, because every 5 days, 6 days, she visiting her mother. And then it was 30 years ago. And when he talking about that, he saw, okay, it's 30 years ago, but our history is like something happened yesterday. But now we peace, now we find, as I saying, when I talking, when I presenting myself, I didn't have a home before, but now I have home. I'm feeling much safe. I'm feeling to helping another people, to connected with them, to counseling them. Something like that. Thank you.
But do you think enough is being done to help people that may still have trauma?
We not. That's why I was decided to study mental health counseling. We don't have much cancer in Rwanda, and much people still have trauma. For example, my mom, even is 30 years ago, but when he broken glass of water, she's shaking and she go right away under the bed or hiding. And then she's saying, they coming again, they're gonna killing us or something sound different. She's worried. So it's not enough. We need much a counselor here. And I saying in the future, when I'm done to study, I want to opening woman center in here, Kigali, Rwanda, to helping women, to helping the people have trauma. It's not only trauma, even the people have problem for violence, anything about trauma. That's why I decided to opening center woman helping people here. Yeah.
Thanks, Merve. I think, Kathy, we still have some time left, so I've not seen any specific questions, a lot of comments.
Yeah.
But if
I
anyone
think-
would like to
Yeah.
ask any questions, we'd be more than happy to try to respond.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like the YouTube video that you and I did together, Jeremy, there's what you've shared is so powerful. I don't think there's much to say after this except to keep our hearts open, keep you in our hearts, the work you're doing, Merve, and continue to spread the word. And Jeremy, Merve and Jeremy will be speakers at the International Day for Peace through the Peace Alliance on September 21st. So they'll speak at length again about some different aspects of what happened. I highly encourage you to find out more about what happened in genocide. Again, it's a cautionary tale for the United States and other places around the world. And this message is so important and is a way for us to come together before more polarization leads to more violence. So thank you both for being here. Is there anything else you'd like to say, Merve or Jeremy?
Just Kathy, feel free to share our email addresses. We're very happy to hear from anyone. As we said, if anyone wants to come to visit, maybe when we get the center going, who knows, Edwin, maybe we could have an empathy summit here in Kigali. So we're very glad to do that. Anything else you want to say?
And yeah, some people doesn't know what's happened about genocide. I'm really happy to sharing his story in genocide. Now I just share about after genocide, but when genocide, really anyone wanted to hear about genocide, I'm ready to sharing. Yeah.
Great. Yeah. Perhaps we can do that on September 21st. You can, shape that any way you want to, your time on that day.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. It looks like there is one question. Are there formal or informal support groups in Rwanda right now for those who have been through trauma?
Yes, there are, but there are not enough.
Yeah.
So there are certain groups that will focus on genocide survivors, but there definitely needs to be a lot more. There is more of a conversation around trauma and mental health, partly because of COVID. Even though it was handled very well here, there was an awareness, perhaps greater awareness of things like depression. And, a lot of it is still linked back to the genocide. We have our annual commemoration period that starts on the day the genocide started, April 7th. And that's a period of deep mourning, people coming together, there's certain commemoration ceremonies. So it is something which is very constant in our lives, and some things are being done, but a lot more could be done.
Yeah. Well, thank you both again very much. Everybody take a deep breath and we can move on. Thank you. So, Luz Wire introduced me to empathy circles, and we're going to hear from him next. He's a managing partner and coach at Authentic Leadership Center, co-creator of the Empathy Circle Facilitation Training, and co-chair of the Sonoma County Braver Angels Alliance. And he's going to present on the role of connection before education in depolarizing dialogue and the relational dynamics and skills that contribute to or block connection. Thank you, Lou. It's over to you.
Thanks, Kathy. Yeah, I'm still kind of settling from the previous speakers. That was such a deep and moving share about what about an amazing journey. What I'm what I feel is just the strength of the human spirit and our kind of natural desire to heal, you know, from trauma. It's a great story about that. So I'm very touched by it, and it renews my faith, actually, in humanity, that that people can heal from such a terrible, unspeakable thing. So I'm going to talk about so I started working with Edwin around 2016 when he was doing empathy circles at the public rallies in Berkeley, California, the free speech rallies where right-wing folks were coming to the center of the free speech movement and saying that they had, you know, the right to say whatever they wanted. And there was a lot of counter rallies. There was a lot of conflict there. And I heard that Edwin was doing this work of bringing people into listening to each other. And I went down there to be part of it because I thought this is brilliant. And when I got there, you know, what I witnessed was, it was really sad. Everybody wanting to be heard, nobody listening to each other. And so both sides are like yelling at each other and bullhorns, you know, each one trying to say what they're trying to say louder than the other, and nobody listening to each other. And we would go out into the crowd and connect with individual people and say, why are you here? And how do you feel about what's happening? And then, you know, over here, we're actually encouraging people to listen to one another. Would you like to come over and sit in on a listening circle? And people did that. And we really helped people connect with each other and begin to hear each other. And other people who walked by that didn't participate thanked us, like, thank you for doing this. This is so wonderful that you're doing this. So people recognized immediately that, like, actually talking to each other was a good idea. And so I started doing empathy circle work with Edwin and helped with Bill Filler and Edwin and actually a couple other people developed the empathy circle facilitator training. And so we've been doing that for, I don't know, 2.5, 3 years, something like that. Training cohorts of people from around the world on Zoom to facilitate empathy circles. And, you know, and I want to talk about the most immediate way that I have applied the empathy circle practice in my community is by doing a community listening project or community building project called Petaluma Conversations. I live in Petaluma, California. And so this is we do this in a series of evenings where we invite members from the community to come and do empathy circle practice around a topic or around no topic or around a topic that they bring. And been doing that for a couple of years. And so I'd like to just share, so the purpose of Petaluma Conversations is to bridge social and political divides. That's the stated purpose of it. And each evening when we get together, I read this purpose statement. The purpose of Petaluma Conversations is to provide a place where people can come together and listen to each other, to get to know one another and understand each other, even if they don't agree with each other, to build community across differences. We do this to connect with and learn about others in our community who are different than we are, to be heard about whatever is important to each of us, and to contribute to building a resilient community that values understanding and ways of bridging social and political divides. So it's a capacity building project. We want to build capacity in the community for people to listen to difference. So now I'm gonna put in the chat the principles that I'm going to talk about. So when we get people together for the evening, and we invite them into the circles. We do a preliminary thing where we talk to them about the principles that we're trying that we hold in doing this work. And these are really important. So one is that everyone wants to be heard and understood. That's true of me, and it's true of all the people that I have, human beings that I've been in contact with. Two, that we're here to understand each other, not interrogate, argue, or convince each other. So this is one of the things about conversations that people often have who are, working for social change, or who want to see something different happen, is that they get into conversations with people with the intent of changing that person's mind, telling them how wrong they are, showing them the way, correcting their errors. And so we have this habit, and actually, as I think about it, that's not really just about social change. That happens in all of our relationships, whether it's a partner or a child or a person at work or something. When we're in conversation with people, we're often thinking about whether I agree with what this person is saying or disagree with it, or whether it's right or wrong, whether it's appropriate or inappropriate. And we are, that's how we're engaging with them, to show them how what they're saying is either correct or not correct. And that when we get together to do the empathy circle work, that's not what we're here for. Okay, a third principle is that showing understanding, verbally or non-verbally, like by reflecting someone back what they're saying, that's not agreeing with them. And a lot of people are reluctant to reflect back what they hear they're saying, because they think that means that they agree with the person, or the person's going to think that they agree with them. And so we just state that very explicitly, that doing that is not agreeing. So 4, we're here for mutual understanding, not problem solving. So this is another thing that people tend to do in conversation, is rather than just receiving what the other person is saying and wanting to understand it and kind of be with them in it, we switch into problem solving. We think the person is asking us to help them solve it. And my experience is that people want to know that they're understood and accepted before they are ready for problem solving. And so we agree that we're actually not there for problem solving. Okay, so and then 5 is really important. We trust that people will find their own solutions or decide to change their minds or not as they see fit, and that the mutual understanding that we are building in the empathy circle practice is a contribution to that individual decision by people. So we're trusting that by being with someone and listening to them and showing understanding for what they are saying, and then having them listen to us, because it's a mutual dialogue, that we may influence each other, but we're not deliberately, but we're giving people a lot of space for having choice about that. And that's a really important element in making change, I think. That's certainly my experience in life. Okay, and then, So, and then the other thing is that we ask people to participate in the conversations with these intentions. So one is curiosity. Actually, I'll put these in the chat too. Let me put these in the chat. So we ask participants to participate with these intentions: curiosity about others and what's important to them, openness about oneself and different points of view, honesty, which means saying what's important to you, even if it's different than what others are saying, mutuality, which means following the empathy circle structure so that everyone gets an equal chance to be heard and understood to their satisfaction. And that's really key. And then care, which is, while this isn't always possible because people are emotional, people get charged about things, so that it's not always possible to remain conscious about whether what you're saying, how others might be receiving it. And actually, I would say in the empathy circle practice, the instructions to the speaker are say whatever you want to say. And so we're not trying to limit what people say or have them think a lot about how others might react to it. The important thing is to say what's important to you and have that heard. Yeah. So I guess the other thing I'd like to talk about is how the empathy circle practice actually supports these goals so fully. And so I assume that most of the people here have had some experience with empathy circle practice. How much more time do I have? Where am I?
Just like a minute.
Okay, a minute.
That's a great question. If you have not been in an empathy circle, can you go down to the reactions and raise your hand? I'm just curious how many people have not. Okay, we have somebody new.
Okay. Well,
okay,
so
looks like most people.
Yeah, so yeah, empathy circle practice is a mutual listening practice where a person takes a turn speaking, and before they start speaking, they select someone else to reflect back what they're saying. Everyone in this circle listens, but one person's a reflector.
Mm-hmm.
And the instructions for the reflector are just reflect back what you understand the person's saying and maybe how they feel about it. And so the things that we normally do, what we do by habit in conversation, which is ask questions, make comments, agree or disagree, add my own experience, all of that, the reflector does not do. And one of the roles of the facilitator is to remind the reflector if they fall into that, because it's easy to fall into it. We have very strong habits for that. But one of the things that's very powerful at the empathy circle is that it interrupts the habit of doing those things. And of course, when you're the speaker, you could do any of those things if you want, because you're welcome to. When you're speaker, you could say whatever you want. So if you have a question, you could ask it then, or if you want to make a comment, you can, but not when you're the reflector. And so it's amazing what happens when people are, when a space is opened up where people can just speak freely and have what they're saying understood by having it reflected back to them. That creates understanding, and it creates connection, and it causes people to reflect more, the speaker to reflect more on what they're saying. Yeah, and allows a space where people can hear different opinions and not get into arguments with each other. And that is the beginning of making change. It's not, it doesn't actually make change because there's no problem solving involved, but it's an important foundational step to actually engaging to make change. Because you have to, this is where Kathy was saying connection before education. So you have to be connected to someone. They have to trust that you care about them before they're willing to hear, new information from you, or to hear something about how your behavior is impacting them, or how you might want them to do something different. Right. So thank you. I probably went over my time, but.
That is great. So we'll have an empathy circle in 1 hour for anyone that wants to stay and participate in that, especially if you have not done one before. I think you'll really find it an amazing practice and experience. And so, Lou, thank you. These are great steps for anybody to use to listen to somebody else. And you mentioned that you can't judge people for what they're saying. You have to just be, present for them. And when empathy is present, there cannot be judgment at the same time. So that's a very important step to this. So thank you so much. My introducer to empathy circles. Appreciate having you here.
Thanks, Kathy. Thanks for the invitation.
Yeah. And then our last person this hour is Courtney Breeze. She's the executive director with the National Coalition for Dialogue and Deliberation. You want to check that organization out. She's going to share what dialogue really is and how practicing dialogue in our lives can benefit us and our world. And she's also going to have some resources she's going to share with us. So over to you, Courtney.
Thanks, Kathy. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you all, wherever you are. It's wonderful to be here with you today. I think it's great timing for me to come after some of our speakers this morning. I'll be touching upon, I think, some similar themes as I talk a bit about dialogue. So I don't think it's really hyperbolic to say that our world has been shaken over the last several years. The experience that most of us have shared, kind of ironically, is the disconnect and the loneliness that we've felt in the wake of a global pandemic. If you haven't seen it before, and I will share it in chat in a couple of minutes, the US Surgeon General's advisory that was recently released, titled Our Epidemic of Loneliness and Isolation, highlights just how important social connections and community are to us as individuals. The report shows us that social connection is really crucial to both our individual health as well as our collective health. And it's also essential to our community's safety and resilience. So it's really no wonder that we're continuing to experience, an extreme lack of connection. And we're continuing to see our public discourse decline in some rather alarming ways. And I will add, the caveat of most of the work that I do is focused on a national level, looking at the US. So it may feel a little bit different for some of you joining us from other places, but I do think at the same time, we have been seeing this in a lot of spaces these days. We need only to really look at the recent news in the US to see what has become of our discourse. People are being excluded. Even just looking at this week, people are being excluded from opportunities and rights are being challenged. Our political landscape has continued to bring out some of the worst in us. And we see this at our own personal level as well. Many of us are finding it harder and harder to talk with those whom we don't see eye to eye. We avoid family members or neighbors or even coworkers whom we might find ourselves in difficult conversations with. All of this has the potential to further compound our challenges. So I don't mean to sound pessimistic. I just am naming kind of the moment that for many people, we are feeling and living in right now. In fact, while, I think this is what we're seeing, and I know many of you here today, I suspect like me, have a lot of hope for what we can do. We know that in many ways we're sort of at a crossroads right now, but we also know that there are ways that we can address the disconnect we're feeling, the disenchantment we may be experiencing, and the distrust that we're seeing. And I believe much of the work that needs to be done is the work of dialogue. So dialogue, to put it simply, is the practice of speaking with one another in deep and personal ways, practicing listening and empathy in order to really hear one another, to learn more about ourselves and others, and explore our experiences. It can help us identify and clarify issues and unlock new possibilities. While there's many different types of dialogue models in the world today, and we just heard a little bit about one from Lou, at their core is really a conversation that's based on mutual agreements for how we talk with one another. So thinking about those, what Lou had shared with us in the chat, right? That's an agreement for how we're going to engage with one another in conversation, and a structure for conversation, which encourages an exchange of information and that deeper listening. So you've heard me say listening a couple times now. At the core of dialogue truly is listening. The empathy circle that many of you have experienced and that others of you will experience for the first time later today is a really great example of that practice of listening. So hearing someone deeply and communicating back to them to show that we have heard them. Increasing our skills in listening to understand one another helps us to prevent some of these roadblocks of miscommunication that we experience today, and helps us get past the superficial statements and posturing, and into the real conversations about what really matters to us. Beyond listening, dialogue helps us to open doors to people whom we might not otherwise connect with. It provides us with a basic structure for conversation, which helps us to be respectful, curious, and encouraging. In dialogue, we ask people to share their stories. Often it's our stories which are the most powerful. When we share who we are and what has led us to be the person that we are today, we open a world of understanding into why we are so passionate or concerned or emboldened and so on. It helps us to understand why we may feel strongly about certain matters and less about others. It helps us to unearth our values, what are most important to us as individuals in this complex world. This breaks us away from the kind of sound bit talking points that we often find ourselves reaching for when we're talking about the issues of our time. It grounds us in what is real for each of us and allows us to go beyond the surface to what can truly make a difference if we share it with one another. By engaging with one another through dialogue, we can dissipate those feelings of isolation and loneliness that I mentioned that have really grown over the past several years. We can reconnect with those we've distanced ourselves from out of fear or maybe apprehension. We can work together to decide how to tackle some of the challenges of our communities, our nations, and our world. And we can envision a new future, one which is steeped in love and mutual understanding. We all deserve and are worthy of love, of respect and care. And by embracing one another in dialogue, we can help create a world where we are shown that love and care. By practicing dialogue, we can achieve many of the aspirations we have for a better future. And we can identify new and more powerful approaches we may take to addressing the challenges of our world today. So, sharing some opportunities and resources for you all. You can be a part of this vision that I laid out, by learning more about the practice of dialogue. And I suspect many of you are already there, participating in dialogues, getting training to lead these conversations, perhaps becoming a part of the coalition that we've started at NCDD. So for those of you who aren't familiar, the National Coalition for Dialogue and Deliberation, which we call NCDD, because that's a lot easier to say, is a network of innovators who bring people together across divides to discuss, decide, and take action together on today's toughest issues. So we serve as a gathering place, a resource center, a news source, and also a facilitative leader for this community of practice as we frame it. Our website, the NCDD website, and I will drop a link for you all in a moment, contains a wealth of resources that can help you explore what's possible when it comes to dialogue, as well as deliberation, which I haven't been talking about today, but really is kind of that next step conversation, helps us weigh our options when we're thinking about what is it we should do together. You can check out our beginner's guide, which I'll link, for some of the best starting places for dialogue practice. You can learn more about our members and membership organizations we have, some who are definitely amongst folks who are here in the room today. Visit our resource center to check out additional materials from our network, which can help you on this journey. And as I have to mention too, consider joining us for our national conference that we'll be holding this October in Atlanta, Georgia. And again, I'll share links for those in just a moment. Beyond some of those very specific asks and suggestions, I just want to encourage everyone to just not forget to simply practice the art of listening and empathy in your everyday interactions. Slow down those thoughts that you're having, focus on the person you're speaking with, make an effort to confirm you're understanding them. Be curious. One of my favorite things I like to tell people is to be curious. Ask questions to clarify where someone's coming from, or to help them share their story, and work to practice these approaches in your own communication. Offer some explanation of why you feel strongly, versus rather just making, some statements without any information to help people understand where it's coming from. Ask people if they have questions for you, invite them to share their perspective. By practicing these principles of dialogue, you can really widen your worldview and strengthen your connections. We can all have a great impact on our world simply by being active participants in it. By practicing dialogue, we can help show others the importance of listening and understanding and help us address what matters most. I hope that by practicing dialogue and empathy, you will find fulfilling connections. I encourage you to reach out to me and the NCDD network if you feel compelled to become a part of our little community. Certainly, we also have lots of lovely communities that are represented amongst today's speakers and today's participants. And just want to encourage us all to keep doing the work that we're doing. It's important, perhaps now more than ever. And, you know, hopefully by continuing to do this and bringing it to more and more people, we can really see and make a difference. So thanks for giving me the time this morning for me, other times for you all. It's been wonderful to listen and to share.
Yes, thank you so much. And thank you for the beginner's guide. That's wonderful. It's always great to have resources. So we're going to wrap up this first hour. And BJ, do you want to wrap up for us? And then I'll move on to Victoria.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank our sponsors, and I also like to thank everybody that's here from LinkedIn and those people who are here for the first time. I'm so grateful, and we're so grateful to have you. And please consider joining the empathy movement, because we are going global. And one thing I'd like to say, two things that I can say that resonate with everything that has been said by everyone and that's going to be said by everyone. And I'll slow down talking because I'm from Louisiana. We talk kind of fast. So what I'd like to say is that two of the toughest things to do have been said, and one would be forgiving the hurts we don't deserve. And I'll let y'all marinate on that a minute. Forgiving the hurts we don't deserve is hard. Also, secondly, I like to say showing love to somebody when they deserve it the least, difficult. But as time go on and as you grow, you can get there. And it's a challenge, you know, you're gonna fall down, but you get back up. But again, I'll just leave you with that. Forgiving the hurts we don't deserve and showing love to someone when they deserve it the least. And I'll leave that there. Thanks.
Powerful. Thank you, BJ. Oh, take a breath. So our next hour will be hosted by the Foundation for Developing Compassion and Wisdom, and Victoria Coleman will be moderating that hour. So Victoria, welcome, and over to you.
Thank you so much, Kathy, and also to Edwin for inviting FDCW to join this summit. We feel really delighted and honored to be part of this. And I just got to add, I'm so inspired and moved by what has been shared by all of our speakers so far. So, you know, thank you from my heart to your heart, everyone. And welcome to this next hour. The next 60 minutes is going to unfold like this. First, I'm going to spend just a few minutes speaking about the purpose of FDCW and its approach and its impact around the world. And then our first speaker is one of those facilitators, Mabel Odyssey, who's going to talk for about 15 minutes on how we work with our minds and how we treat ourselves. She's going to touch on self-violence, blaming and shaming, and methods for transforming that. And then our next speaker is Niv Agam, and he's going to be talking about self-psychology and the link that has with empathy. And then he's going to move on to talk about the work of Dreamers Home, the nonprofit that he founded in Israel, and social magic. And then finally, we're going to move on to a panel discussion. And Niv, Mabel and I will be discussing some of the themes and topics that have come up. And at that stage, if anyone has any questions, please either raise your hand with the little icon or drop it into the chat. Hopefully Kathy or Edwin or I will pick it up and share it at that point. So one of the reasons I'm so happy to participate in this event today is because empathy, it really is at the heart of everything that we're trying to do here at FDCW and our community. Because we think that the power of empathy, alongside identifying our own core values, while also practicing mindful and kindful communication, can really lead to a more harmonious world and improved relationships with one another. But the jumping off point for us at FDCW is mind. So we really believe that everything starts with our mind. Let me share that the founder and inspiration of FDCW was the late Lama Yeshe. And he said, our mind always interprets that something is not right, something is not complete about me and my life. And the mind is always criticizing. So holding such a low opinion of ourselves is completely wrong, he said. We actually need to live up to our tremendous potential. So that's at the heart of the work that we're doing, is getting people to fulfill their tremendous potential. And maybe you felt this critical mind, I certainly have, that inner feeling that you have, something's not right, I'm not good enough, I don't like myself, people don't like me, I'm not a good person, I'm being judged. And actually that's painful, and I think identifying that is the way forward. It's the way that we can learn to heal and be with others. And maybe we don't always feel like that. I mean, heavens, there are plenty of distractions out there for this inner sense of uncomfortableness. And maybe things are actually going quite well for us for a while, but we do know that this can change at any moment, right? We lose someone we love, we hear someone has become sick, our friend, we lose our job, someone moves away, or we just hear bad news, or just switch on the TV, plenty of bad news there that you can find out about, and it affects our mind. And then we've got to look at our concept of happiness. How can the mind be happy? So we think that when we get what we want, then we're going to be happy. But actually, if we look at it more deeply, the greatest happiness is contentment, having peace of mind. So recently I heard someone say that true happiness is when you're completely happy with who you are and what you have. When you feel gentleness, loving kindness, and a sense of caring for others. The main point is to have a soft heart. And I think the bedrock foundation for all of this is empathy. And that's what connects us here today. At FTCW, we offer ways to investigate the mind and to cultivate a warm heart. And we think that these go hand in hand. They're actually supporting one another. So like two wings of a bird, by cultivating our natural sense of empathy and good heart, our wisdom is going to expand and get stronger. And as we become wiser, that makes us even more strong in heart and more empathic with others. And our mind has this unlimited potential. And we discover this by actually going deep inside and investigating, how do I exist? By asking, what is my consciousness? What is my mind? What is my essence? Why am I here? What is my purpose? And at FTCW, what we do is we provide tools and methods for fulfilling this tremendous human potential and supporting people along this inner journey. So our flagship program is the 16 Guidelines for a Happy Life. And the point of this program is to offer a network or framework to guide our inner investigation. We look at how do we think, how we act, how we relate to others, and how we find meaning in our life. And we do this by examining our values and using these to guide our behavior and how we meet life's daily challenges. And the understanding that we can choose to lead a more harmonious life, and that in turn is going to bring greater peace of mind and a sort of stability that can lead you to sort of surf the waves of daily life and bring you a more lasting kind of happiness. So we have trainers and facilitators and partner organizations all around the world. And that's actually how we connected with Edwin and Kathy, because one of our facilitators found out about the Empathy Circle and introduced it to the remaining facilitators. There's more than 100 worldwide. And we did a forum on it and a training session so we could experience it for ourselves. Anyway, one of our facilitators is working in Colombia with adult and children refugees who've just come across from Venezuela. And many of these people are traumatized by their experiences. And they're not really used to sitting still or meditating or anything like that. So she's adapted the program and brought movement into it. For example, yoga postures. Another one of our facilitators works in a hospice in Germany. So he shares strategies for resilience and compassion based on the 16 guidelines in order to support the staff and volunteers who are providing important end-of-life care so they can support people who they're with, but also support themselves in that process. Our materials have also been adapted for use by psychologists who work in Ukraine and also for refugees who've escaped Ukraine living in Germany. And so far the materials have reached more than 2,200 people. The 16 Guidelines has also been taught as a university course at the University of Toronto in Canada for more than 10 years now. And one of our Canadian facilitators adapted the program to support disadvantaged youth at a facility called Pine Rivers. Another one of our Canadian facilitators has developed equine assisted learning and mindfulness programs for youth and adults. So she successfully blended this work with horses and the 16 Guidelines program and has had some really great results. Some of our facilitators teach 16 Guidelines inside prisons, and 2 of our facilitators are based out in Mongolia. They're teaching 16 Guidelines to adults and children there. And there's a plan to spread it more widely so that the program can become nationwide. Other facilitators work in schools with teachers and children. So we have programs in England, Mexico, Italy, Israel, Australia, and India. And in each case, the materials we provide and the training are adapted to make them relevant and suitable for local children. And so that's why training our facilitators is so important. We need to empower them to give them the confidence to be able to adapt to what is needed locally. So in October, we're going to harness and share all of this energy in an online conference called Growing Compassionate Hearts. There'll be speakers from all around the world, and they're going to share their experience and methods for how to introduce values and compassion and mindfulness to children and young people and what they've learned. You're welcome to join that. Our 16 Guidelines program is currently being evaluated by an independent researcher, Professor Kim Drake, who's gathering data from schools in India and Mexico. And her initial findings show that a significant improvement in inattention, hyperactivity, in peer problems, conduct problems, and pro-social behavior compared with those who have not been exposed to the methods of the program, the 16 Guidelines. So I hope that brief snapshot overview has let you see that the success of the 16 Guidelines program isn't just due to the content of the program, but also the skill and the different facilitators around the world adapting the program to what's needed by local people. And I think that's why the program is so universally appealing and impactful. And if you'd like to find out more about these programs and our free resources, which are available in several languages, please have a look at our website. I can drop it into the chat. It's compassionandwisdom.org. So now let's turn to our speakers. I'm absolutely delighted to introduce one of our most active facilitators, Mabel Odyssey. I've had the pleasure of knowing Mabel for more than 5 years now. She is an accredited facilitator of the 16 Guidelines program, both levels 1 and levels 2, as well as the adaptation for 16 Guidelines for children and teens, and a facilitator of the Building Balanced Empathy program we have. For Mabel, the power and simplicity of the 16 Guidelines speak not only to the intellect, but also to the heart. By using the guidelines in daily situations, she says her outlook and behavior has changed. Mabel introduced the 16 Guidelines program to people in Israel 2 years ago by working remotely online with participants. And this has resulted in 16 Guidelines taking a firm root in Israel. Many facilitators have now been trained, but we'll share more about that later. I'm just going to hand over to Mabel now. She's also a founder member of the Education Universelle in France, a partner organization of FTCW, and she's a photographer. So over to you, Mabel. Looking forward to hearing from you.
Thank you, Victoria. Thank you to everyone who's been involved in putting this summit together, all the volunteers and the people representing the empathy circles, and all these amazing speakers who have really touched my heart and been so inspiring. And I hope that what I can add to this, I think is an important part of the puzzle. So I'm really delighted to be here and very honored to be here with you all. I'd like to start, first of all, maybe asking you, because we've been sitting here for an hour already, maybe everyone needs to stretch or move a little bit and just take a minute or two to look after yourselves. Do what you need to do. Yeah. Great. Okay. And then I'm going to introduce you to a practice we do with the 16 Guidelines, which is taking a moment before we start something to settle our minds a little bit and focus on motivation. So I'll invite you all to get comfortable. It's only going to last a couple of minutes, but just be in a comfortable position and taking a moment or two to bring the attention down into the body, bringing the attention to the breath as it comes into the body and as it leaves the body. And noticing maybe with the out breath, how the body releases. And seeing if we can let go of the conversations we've been listening to or participating in, letting go of any preoccupations of what might come next. And just letting the mind settle into the body in the here and now, to be totally present for what comes next. And I've picked a card from the 16 guidelines for today. I just chose it at random, and what's come up is service. And I'll just propose to each one of us to take that word, that attitude to mind, that value, and see how it resonates with you and see how it might inform your motivation for being here today. Why are you really here today? So to get started, I'd like to read you a quote from Ilarion Merkurov, who, if you don't know who he is, he's from the Aleut Islands. He's from the Anungan tribe, and he brings the ancient wisdom from his culture to the modern dialogue about how to resolve conflict in our world today. And I find him incredibly inspiring. And he says, Native Americans say that one who lives in the present moment is the real human being, one who is whole, one who knows their place in the world. The elders say, nothing is created outside of us until it is created inside first. We are in conflict outside because we are in conflict inside. We judge others because we judge ourselves first. We criticize and find fault in others because we are finding fault inside ourselves first. And we trash the environment outside because we trash the environment inside. As long as this kind of consciousness exists, we will never create anything truly new, inside or outside. So that brings me to really the heart of what I'd like to share with everyone today, which is the practice of mindfulness, which for me is the fundamental thing that everyone needs, and certainly a fundamental basis for which empathy can arise. Because the presence that we create with mindfulness is a presence where we are a real human being. We're there with our hearts, we're there with our minds, and we're not only present with our hearts and minds, but we bring to that an attitude of openness and acceptance. And cultivating these two things is really, I think, the basis which enables the empathy circles to be so successful from what we've heard. And it's also how we can see how by developing this kind of presence, it's a service to ourselves. It's a service to becoming okay with being imperfect, okay with, when we screw up. And how does that open us up to being okay with others? I mean, not even remotely in a big dramatic way like what Merve was speaking about, but just in a very day-to-day sort of way. And I think the other thing that this quote points to is that how we create our own reality with our minds. And what we work with a lot with the 16 guidelines is that we have a choice about that. And every single moment, we're projecting onto whatever is happening our own movie. And until we become aware of that, we're creating a filter and a separation between us and the other. And that also, I think, is a big obstacle for having empathetic conversations, for really truly connecting with the other. So that's why I really feel quite strongly and have experienced for myself in my own life how mindfulness combined with using the 16 guidelines, 16 universal values, which touch people from, in my experience, different cultures, different countries, different religions, different age groups, regardless, these values touch people. And almost all of them have come up already in the conversations I've been listening to. So it's really proves that, they're all there within us. We're not bringing in anything new. What we're doing is cultivating these things that will bring us, as Victoria said, inner peace and happiness, and also will bring outer peace and happiness. So we're all being sort of activists in change, in transformation from the inside out. And I think a really important way that this works, which I think also the empathy circles talk about a lot, is being seen and heard. And to be seen and heard is such a fundamental human need. And to bring a heart presence to another person is the greatest gift we can give. And we can only give that if we're mindfully present. So very, very briefly, just to fill people in a little bit about the 16 guidelines, because they've also had this very huge impact on my life. It's a text that was written in the 7th century in Tibet. And it's astonishing how relevant it is today. And it's relevant today because the circumstances were, there was a lot of conflict in the population, there were warring clans, there were disputes, there were all sorts of problems. And this text was diffused by the government, the king at the time, and really helped transform the population, again, from the inside out. And so I think that what I've seen in my work facilitating, in my work with using these cards, if not always on a daily basis, but regularly, is that they do bring people together. They bring people together to connect. And like a handshake, we do need these two things to connect with others, to hear people, to see people, to be seen and heard. We need both presence and we need curiosity and openness and an ethical sort of support for that. And I think the 16 guidelines are also there to remind us about who we are, who we want to be, and what we want to focus on. So for the next part of my time with you, I'd like to sort of ask you, what does it really mean to connect as a real human being? And to explore that, I think it's to see what we have in common with the other. And again, something that Ilarion Mercurioff has said, in his people's language, the Anungin language, there's no word for you. To express this idea of you, they say my other self. And I think that really is the heart of where we want to be coming from, to bridge that gap, to bridge that duality and polarization that other people have spoken about already. So let's have a look. I'd like to lead you in a practice that's called Just Like Me. It's a short practice. Victoria, how much time do I have?
As much as you like, no worries.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we'll do this short practice called Just Like Me, which is a meditation that was created by Ram Dass and Mirabai Bush, two meditation teachers. And again, if you need to move about for a moment to find a comfortable position, please do that for yourself. And then I invite you, each one, to become aware of all the people in front of you. And maybe just choose one of these wonderful little squares on the Zoom screen to look at. And just look at them as there's another human being there, just like me. And I'll repeat, and I'll say some phrases, and I invite you all to carry on looking at this other human being and repeat the phrases to yourself silently. This person has a body and mind, just like me. This person has emotions and thoughts and feelings, just like me. This person has experienced physical, emotional pain and suffering, just like me. This person has been, at some time, been sad, disappointed, angry, or hurt, just like me. This person has felt unworthy or inadequate, just like me. This person will die, just like me. This person has longed for friendship, just like me. This person wants to be kind and caring to others, just like me. This person wants to be free from pain and suffering, just like me. This person wishes to be safe and healthy, just like me. This person wishes to be seen and heard, just like me. This person wishes to be loved, just like me. And now allow wishes for well-being to arise. I wish this person to have strength, resources, and the support they need. I wish this person to be free from pain and suffering. I wish this person to be peaceful and happy. I wish this person to be loved, because this person is a fellow human being, just like me. I'd like to thank you all. Thank you all for sharing that moment with me.
Thank you, Mabel. Thank you for sharing your experience with the guidelines and mindfulness, and also for guiding us in that really beautiful practice I loved. So I'd like to introduce our second speaker now, Niv Agam. Niv heard about the 16 Guidelines program and wanted to bring it to people in Israel. So by working with Mabel, Niv organized the first 16 Guidelines workshops in Israel back in 2021. Niv's a clinical psychologist at Tel Aviv and provides treatment to children, adolescents, and adults using self-psychology and Buddhist philosophy and practice. Niv is the founder and chair of Dreamers Home, which is a non-profit that we partner with here at FTCW to bring the 16 Guidelines program to Israel. Dreamers Home aims to contribute to social solidarity and a more harmonious, peaceful, and just world. It works to overcome religious and cultural barriers while recognizing the individual needs of people and showing how together we can create a different way of being with each other and create a new world. So I feel really inspired in the 2 years that I've known Niv and his team, Gilat, Ophir, and the rest of the team at Dreamers. They're sharing these tools for a better world, and they're doing it with enthusiasm, perseverance, and joy. And I'm really impressed by the connections that they've made, particularly in places like Netanya, to introduce the 16 Guidelines to children and teachers in schools throughout this region. And also Ophir Levitt's project called the Jaffa Balcony, which shares values with local women in a safe, secular framework, allowing people from different religious backgrounds and cultures to participate. So Dreamers have also created a website on the 16 Guidelines in Hebrew, and I believe they're also translating materials into Arabic too. So Niv really walks the talk, and I love that. So over to you, Niv. Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria. So let me begin first by thanking Edwin and Kathy and all the volunteers for arranging this important event, and also for all the speakers. It's really been inspiring and moving and actually very thought-provoking as well. Many connections that can be made. I would like to start with a few words about self-psychology, developed by Heinz Kohut in the 1970s. Trust in our basic goodness as human beings and in our ability to live a life based on ethical responsibility and human solidarity lies at the very heart of self-psychology. The reason I chose to share some thoughts about this theory are firstly, since empathy is a central concept in Kohut's theory. As a matter of fact, his last article that was based on things he said at the last conference he attended days before he died was named on empathy. Moreover, self-psychology alongside the Buddhist philosophy and practices are the two main frameworks that inspire our work at Dreamers Home. In this short talk, I would like to mention two main concepts in self-psychology. One is empathy, and the other is a term named self-object, which Kohut coined, and to highlight how they practically relate to two of the main social programs that Dreamers is working on at this time. The first is named Social Magic, and the second is the 16 guidelines that Victoria and Mabel have already mentioned. So a few words about empathy. Kohut defines empathy as the only method for learning about the inner subjective world of a person. It's an active cognitive process that requires skill and knowledge in order to accurately perceive the complex inner world of another. It's important to mention empathy does not mean being nice, sympathetic, or agreeing with the other person's viewpoint. I think some of the speakers have related to that. Rather, it's the ability to accurately recognize and understand the complex subjective viewpoint of another person. And this is an important point, the ability to express it in such a way that enables them to feel understood. This process enables a person to feel that through the relationship with the other, he or she has an opportunity to connect with aspects of her experience that she did not consider belonging to her beforehand. Meaning to say, similar to the concept of compassion in Buddhist tradition, the Kohutian empathy stresses the active part. It does not mean passive reflection, but rather an active stand, an ethical stand, if you will, of one person being fully present for another. The other term that I would like to briefly just mention is what Kohut named self-object and self-object needs. Self-psychology posits human development based on the extent to which one's basic needs were met during one's life. In Kohut's view, the human infant is born completely dependent, but with a strong, healthy wish to develop and with the human capacity to actively engage physically and mentally with one's caretakers. Kohut claimed that at the outset of the infant's life, his primary self is still fragmentary and weak. He lacks the mature internal stability that develops during childhood. Hence, the infant needs to experience the participation of significant others in her life. This participation regulates her emotions and allows her to overcome the challenges that she faces. It affords her a sense of ease, calmness, inner cohesiveness, resilience, and consistency. He called the significant others self-objects, since they fulfill essential functions for the infant without which she just cannot exist. Is actually in early stages of his writing, self-object was written with an apostrophe between the two words, but it's said that in his biography that it was to him almost like a religious realization that there should not be an apostrophe between the two words, as we are all connected. A unique affinity for self-object relationships that result from the empathic immersion of one person with another form the basis for processes of change and transformation. As we will try to do further elaborate in the next session as much as we have time for it, this is true both on an individual level, but also on a communal level, and perhaps for society in large. So Code referred to two basic needs that need to be fulfilled by the self-object for a cohesive self to emerge, which he named idealization and mirroring. The idealization need, in short, is the expression of the human need for connection with an idealized parental imago. These are individuals towards whom the child develops an attitude of admiration and a desire to become a part of. Usually, the child chooses a figure who's bigger, stronger, and wiser than himself, usually one of the parents, but not necessarily, someone from whom he can draw strength, so that by identifying and merging with the idealized imago, he feels safe and protected. Obviously, a lot more can be said about this, but for now, most important and relevant to maybe this session is that the internalization of this idealized figure takes place in the form of ideals and values that originate from it. In this context, the 16 Guidelines is a wonderful program that enables individuals to connect with their own values. Since it deals with universal values, from our experience in Israel, it has the potential to cross political, religious, and ethnic divides, and as you might know, we have plenty of those, and possibly even create bridges. Again, perhaps we'll have some time to say a bit more about that. The other need that Code named was mirroring. I think this is one that we can all very easily relate to. The mirroring need are the expressions of the child's desire to receive admiration and adulation responses from her immediate surroundings. These reinforcement responses make her feel wanted and valuable. When the child has good experiences that are accompanied by matching mirror responses from her parents, they enable her to develop an internal experience of positive self-worth that is expressed as a realistic level of expectations from the surroundings. She also develops assertive and healthy behavior and aspiration based on her own positive self-worth that exists independently of responses from the surroundings. Simply put, the need for mirroring is what Mabel had mentioned as our basic need to be seen and heard by an empathic heart. Which leads me to Social Magic, the program that I've mentioned before, and I think that actually relates wonderfully to what Courtney had said about loneliness and others. So just shortly in a few words, Social Magic has begun, it is now 12 years from now, in actually 2 weeks, July 14th, 2011. There was a social protest in Israel, and then many people have marched the streets, hundreds of thousands actually. And there was a case of a man named Moses who self-immolated. It was a very tragic event, and after which I received a phone call from a friend mentioning that a man had called her and said that him and another group of people have opened a Facebook group and they plan to self-immolate. This is, by the way, a phenomena that is quite worldwide. I don't know if you've heard, but since 2009, about 157 Tibetans have self-immolated, protesting the Chinese occupation. In 2010, there was a man named Muhammad Bouazizi in Tunisia, who also had issues with some people there, and this is an event that ignited the whole, yes, during Vietnam War as well, and also it ignited the whole Arab Spring. So anyways, after this event in Israel and the call that I've received, this woman asked me if there's a support group that we can send these people to so they don't hurt themselves. And so shortly, what we've decided to do is to form a network of support groups, which this is Social Magic. which is acting to alleviate loneliness as the main core of the activity, and to build solidarity among individuals and groups by forming assistive communities for transformation. The initials is ACT. In Hebrew, the acronym means magic. This is why we chose the name. The program, established during the social demonstrations for the summer of 2011, gives professional multifaceted aid services to citizens who find it hard to cope with the harsh socioeconomic reality in Israel, and assist individuals and families to overcome loneliness, poverty, debts, sickness, and the accompanying hardships. By establishing assistance communities for transformation, we connect such individuals with volunteers, which we call companions, who provide personal aid, as well as with professionals, economists, legal aids, social workers, and counselors, who form a wide-ranging professional support network. Our hope and aspiration are that it will become an activist movement that harnesses the power of these communities to contribute to well-being of individuals, to remove the separating barriers which create loneliness, and to build solidarity among individuals and groups throughout the world. Our dream is to bring about social healing, to help create bridges between people and social sectors, and to work towards the establishment of a cohesive and healthy society. To put it simply, our aspiration and commitment is not to cease until every being is held in another's mind, or in other words, until every self is seen by a self-object with an empathic heart. These days, we're working on an elaborate professional model that will combine, hopefully, social magic and the 16 guidelines, and we truly hope that maybe, perhaps, with empathy circles as well. So thank you very much for your kindly listening, and over back to you, Victoria.
Sorry, I'll unmute. Thanks so much, Niv. Thank you for sharing that information with us, all about self-psychology and social magic and Dreamers Home. So now I think with the remaining time, what we'd like to do is just discuss a little bit about the topics raised so far. So if you have a question you'd like to ask any of our speakers or me, please raise your hand or drop it in the chat. In the meantime, to get us going, I think a theme that's come up throughout this summit is listening. How important is it to listen in our lives to others? And how do we learn to listen well? Maybe I can direct that to you, Mabel, because I know you feel quite passionately about this.
Yeah. Thank you, Victoria. Thank you, Niv, and everyone. Yeah, listening. It's at the heart of communication, and I would say, how can we do it? Is by, first of all, being really aware of what's going on, being aware of the other person. Opening ourselves to what's being said, and also becoming aware when, I think it was Lou who mentioned, all the things that stop us from listening. And for that, we do need some self-introspective, we need some mindfulness to be aware of when we're judging, when we're preparing our response, when we're disagreeing, when we're agreeing, when our mind is wandering, when we're, somewhere else. And all of these things are, the obstacles to listening. So I'd say, it's crucial, it's really crucial. And I think what probably everyone who's here has experienced is how really being truly listened to is an incredible experience. How having someone really there for you is revolutionary, and how we can each one of us bring that to another person.
Like the importance of being heard, how when we feel heard, how that resonates in our heart, and it almost shares the pain that we might experience, or allows the connection that we've been speaking about throughout the summit. Liv, can I turn to you? How important is listening in the work that you do in trying to introduce these programs, techniques, values into communities where maybe there is a bit of conflict and suspicion and different backgrounds and cultures and religion? How important is listening in that context?
I think that listening is what it's all about, basically. I think I've mentioned it in one of our talks before. Many psychologists and psychoanalysts, as they grew older and wiser, they realized they need to just say less and less and mainly listen. We all need that. I think it was Lou, I'm not sure, I think it was Lou who also said it, that people usually want to share and say things, but I'm not sure that there are enough of us that are able to actually maybe leave our issues aside and just be present there and listen to others. And when people are being heard and seen, in many times it's quite enough. We don't need to do much in order to alleviate others' suffering. If people are really felt that their subjective feeling is being observed and seen, and they're not alone, they're already much better off, I think. So.
And so turning to something slightly different now. So when we talk about empathy and our understanding of empathy, how important is the quality of empathy in resolving conflict or situations in the communities that we're working in? Maybe Niv, I can direct that to you. Do you work a lot with empathy, and do you think it's underpinning a lot of the work that you're doing with social magic, for example?
Yeah, in social magic, what we basically try to do is we want to bring people together in a format that in other cases they just would probably never meet. Just for example, we had one of our communities was held in Jaffa for years. Okay, so and we had in this community people that were Jews, Arabs, young people, older people, Ethiopians, Russians, poor people, and people who are better off. And again, it's people who would never meet in other circumstances. And the professional model that we've built is just bringing people together, connecting them firstly in pairs, just trying to be there and assist people to be better off, which gives, by the way, meaning more even to the volunteers, to the companions, than those who receive help. We all need help. We just, otherwise, if we don't have this meaning in our life, then we're quite lost. And then in the group meetings, it's just listening to each other. And this is, by the way, where I think that the model that I don't know well enough yet, but I think that what all of you are doing with the empathy circles just fits amazingly with what we've created in social magic, is to bring people together in a format that we actually listen to one another in an environment that fosters it. And maybe another just one sentence, if we bring the 16 guidelines and all the values that are embedded in this wonderful program to the way we listen to one another, and maybe even help one another in this journey, and for some time, not just for one meeting or two meetings, but for longer periods of time, to actually build communities for a year, 2 years, 3 years. I'm mentioning it because we've done it for years with social magic. Then I think slowly, trust can be built between sectors that otherwise just don't have the opportunity to meet. It's fear when we don't meet each other, then it's just fear there mainly that separates us.
Yeah, and I think that's what I really value about the empathy circle method, is that when I practiced it, it made me really question whether I'm a good listener. You think maybe you are, but then you start practicing the method and think, oh, actually, I don't think I am. And it's a skill, and it's something that we can learn and train ourselves in, I think, and it's a two-way process as well, I think. We have a comment here in the chat from Aneta, who says, when you look at the letters of the word listen, L-I-S-T-E-N, and you rearrange them, they spell silent. And she says, I believe silent means not only not talking, but also not thinking my own thoughts. So that's a tricky one, right? Not thinking our own thoughts.
Beautiful.
Fable, you're doing a course on mindfulness and compassion starting in September, and I know you studied this at the university in West Scotland. What's your idea about not thinking our own thoughts, and how can we get a handle on all those chickens that are running around in our head and settle them all down? Can you say a little bit about that in what, 30 seconds? No, 1 minute?
Yeah, sure. Of course, yeah, that's plenty of time. Yeah, I think that's a really popular misconception about mindfulness is that we can stop thinking our own thoughts. We can, no, our minds cannot stop thinking, just as our eyes cannot stop seeing. If you opened your eyes and you decided not to see, you'd be, or your eyes didn't see, you'd be devastated. It's their job. Our minds create thoughts. The problem is that's not the problem. The problem is our compulsion to engage with the thoughts and believe the thoughts and go with them. And that's where we become disconnected. We become disconnected from the people we're with, from our environment, from ourselves. So that's, yeah, there we go, 30 seconds.
Yeah, I love that. So there's a way to sort of stand back from your thoughts themselves and almost see them as clouds passing across the sky. So you're not like following the story, which then leads you in all different directions and gets you more and more confused. But if you can learn to hone that skill and have that presence, then I think listening becomes a whole lot easier, I would think. More questions and comments in the chat, but I'm actually thinking we may have run out of time. Kathy, or how are we doing?
Yes. You have a couple of minutes, but for those just joining, the empathy circles will start in a few minutes. So we're wrapping up the first 2 hours of the summit. So hang on if you're here for the circles. Go ahead, Victoria.
Okay. So maybe we can take another question then. Let me think. So, Niv, can you say a little bit about the work that you've been doing to introduce 16 guidelines and similar programs in Israel over the last 2 years? High points and low points in a minute or two. No pressure.
In a minute, maybe I'll just say this. I think that the work that all of us here are trying to do, I think, and again, I love the word coalition, because I think that there are many organizations here that are promoting so important causes. And at least what we try to do in Israel is to try and implement the programs, both the 16 guidelines and social magic, into big organizations, or better said, maybe state organizations. So this is the 16 guidelines is now a program of the Ministry of Education in Israel. We entered it in a big city in Israel, fairly big. It's Israel. It's not that big, but it's fairly big for Israel. And we're also we've entered into a mental health hospital in the south of the country. So we believe that by doing it in that way, the resources and even more importantly, our ability to reach vulnerable populations or weakened populations or impoverished populations, call it whatever you're comfortable with, will be much bigger, because otherwise we'll just stay in these kind of circles of people who are able to access these tools, but it's not. We think it's not enough. We need to reach out, and so this is what.
A great point. Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, I really thank Kathy and Edwin and all the speakers today. I feel really inspired by what we've heard, and it's so important for us to support each other in the work we're doing, because it's going to make a difference, and we have to do it. So I just want to wrap up now, thanking Niv and Mabel for joining me today, and I hope you found something useful. If you've got any comments or you want to find out more, I've dropped my email into the chat. You can contact us there or through our website. So thanks very much, and back to you, Kathy.
Wonderful. Thank you, Victoria, for hosting this hour. And thank you, Niv and Mabel, for bringing your wisdom here. We appreciate it. Yeah. So we're going to move into our empathy circle, our traditional empathy circle at this time every Saturday. For those who are empathy circle facilitators, which I see a lot of you have done this already, if you could put hashtag ECF in front of your name, so we can put you in a circle if we need you to facilitate. If you don't mind being recorded, and I've seen people do this already, put hashtag R in front of your name. We're going to have only one room recorded today. That'll be the room where Edwin is in. And for those who have just joined and are new to the circle, Edwin Rush co-founded the Center for Building a Culture of Empathy to promote and foster the value and experience of empathy. Edwin is building a movement to support a global culture of empathy. And if you come to our circles, you'll see people from all over the world. Edwin and his brother Charles Rush are establishing an empathy-based educational retreat center in Santa Barbara, California, in the United States. A major aspect of the retreat center will be working to bridge personal, social, and political divides through the use of mutual listening, empathy, constructive dialogue, and education. Edwin was also an empathy candidate in the Democratic primary for California's 8th congressional district last year. And our another host today for our circle, myself, Edwin, and Linda Bass. Linda is an empathy circle facilitator trainer. She has a master's in psychology. Her passion is alternative dispute resolution. She's a credentialed mediator and arbitrator. She currently contracts with different organizations, including the Texas Better Business Bureau, as a mediator and as an arbitrator. She supports mediators through their development and training in mediation and conflict resolution techniques. And she continues to actively support alternative dispute resolution initiatives as a credentialed mediator and is a past vice president of the Tarrant County Association of Mediators. So we are recording this call for educational and promotional purposes. It may be posted on our website or to social media. And again, wherever Edwin is, will be recorded, and Linda will be facilitating the recorded circle today. I'm Kathy Kidd, and with the Center for Building a Culture of Empathy, and a volunteer with the Empathy Center. And I'm from Houston, Texas, a social worker and psychotherapist. I've been attending empathy circles for 2 years. I was immediately hooked, trained to be a facilitator, and now I'm a trainer. I'm very proud of that. This is near and dear to my heart. So we normally take time to do a quick introduction, but since we have 47 people on the call, we'll skip that. But if you'd like to type in the chat where you're calling from, we can at least see where people are around the world. And before I move forward to have Linda explain how to participate in an empathy circle, and of course, when you're in your smaller circles, the experience of it will be really what will ground you in how to do this. Is there anything I've left out, Edwin or Linda, before we move forward?
I think it was well covered. The presentations, we're here building a culture of empathy and an empathy movement. We're having these discussions, or actually these speakers share their insights. But now we're going to go into the action, the actual doing of the empathy. Actually, one of the best practices I know of, processes for practicing empathy skills and deepening those skills. So with that, turn it over to Linda.
I've been muted all this time, so now I can speak. Yay. Okay, welcome everyone. This has been really, really interesting. This morning or this afternoon, wherever you are, these past couple of hours have been very interesting. And so now we're going to break out into or move into breakout rooms, and everyone will do that. So all you have to do is just sit still. And in each room, there will be a facilitator, and we will engage in this process called empathy circles. Now, I noticed some people raise their hand and say they've never participated. So let me do a quick overview of how it works. And once you get in your breakout rooms, your facilitators will explain more to you and break it down a little clearer for you. So we have a facilitator, a speaker, a listener, and observers. Those are the actors in each room. The facilitator will manage the room. Meaning they will make sure everybody stay on point, stay on track, and stay on time, because a subject or topic will be selected. Each person in that circle, in that breakout room, will have an opportunity to speak for 4 minutes, 5 minutes, 3 minutes, whatever the 4 minutes, will have an opportunity to speak for 4 minutes. Now, so when the facilitator will manage that. The speaker will speak on that topic or whatever is alive for them that day or at this moment during that 4 minutes, and they will speak in small chunks, because our brains can only hold, or our minds can only hold so much information at a time. So you speak in small chunks, and that gives the reflector or the listener an opportunity to reflect back to the speaker what they heard them say. You can parrot what the person said or summarize it, reflect it, however, but you're not judging, offering an opinion, answering a question, giving advice or anything. You are intentionally listening to the words that are coming out of the speaker's mouth with the intent to reflect back to them what they said. So that person, the speaker, will feel fully heard. If the listener is struggling and can't quite get it, or they're not reflecting back what the speaker is saying, the speaker has the opportunity to rephrase or re-say, whatever it is they want to say. So not only are you intentionally listening, but you are intentionally choosing the words that you're saying because you want your message to be delivered. So you have the facilitator managing the room, the speaker speaking for their allowed 4 minutes, the listener reflecting back to the speaker what is said, and then you have the other people in the room are observers. They don't speak, they don't grunt, they don't ask questions. The best thing to do, because I'm a grunter, is if you're not participating as a speaker or listener, is to mute yourself. And we ask that you, try not to go in and out and cause distractions, because listening is intentional. It is as someone said, it's an art, it's a skill. We all think we're good listeners, and I did too as a mediator until I participated in this, and I found out I'm not. Because as human beings, when people are speaking to us, what y'all are probably doing right now, you're already formulating questions and thoughts and something that you want to say back. Your mind is already, you're listening to, how did this person say it? We listen to, not reflect, but we're not listening to the person, but we're formulating our own thoughts. And I think somebody mentioned that about being mindful. So this is what the empathy circle is all about. You, the speaker, will be heard. You will be heard. Everybody in that room will have an opportunity to speak. Do we have any questions? It is a fun activity. It is an intentional activity, and it is a learning activity. So we got all the things we need to enjoy this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. So I put all the circles have a topic. Today, we are asking a couple of questions just as thought starters. You can talk about whatever's on your mind. When did you first realize empathy was important in your life? Can you see yourself getting involved in the empathy movement? So I think we're going to go ahead and break out into circles at this point.
And those questions will be in the chat.
Yeah, just put them in so that facilitators can copy them so you can post them in the chat when you get in there.
Okay.
And how much time do we have?
Oh, let's see. We're going to come back in an hour and 20 minutes.
Okay.
Hey, Wendy, I think is ready to move us into our rooms.
Yes.
I
Beam us
am
up.
ready. I will, each group has a facilitator. I will send a 10-minute heads up when we get close to that time.
Wonderful.
All right,
Thank you.
take care. Okay, and you have to join yourself.
Oh, that's right. Great, thanks.
All right, we have a good room here. Let me see, we have Edwin and Dale and Arzu.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, I can't believe I pronounced it right because I'm usually terrible name. And Randy, and I will be the facilitator here. So, and my deal. Okay, here we go. It's working now. I will be the facilitator, and like I say, and what I was trying to remember, and I couldn't remember. This lady said one time is we tend to listen to respond. So we're not going to listen to respond today. That pressure is off. You don't have to give advice, suggestions, or pass judgment or anything. All you have to do is listen. And it is intentional. And I will keep time, turn my phone off, so I need to turn it back on. I will keep time. So each person will have 4 minutes to speak. Now, and I'll keep the time when your time is up. I'll hold up this sign. Yeah, I'll hold up this sign. And that doesn't mean to stop in the middle of your sentence. Finish your thought, not the paragraph, but just finish your thought. And if the person is reflecting at the time that when your time is up, the person will finish with their reflection. Okay, so you just don't stop at mid-sentence. That's not going to work. So and I tend to do this because I can be a talker sometimes. Like I say, you need to speak in small chunks because we can only retain so much information that we have to give back to you or reflect back to you. So if you tend to, get caught up in your story or whatever you're saying, you will see, oh, this sign. That just means slow it down and stop and let the person. And if I don't hold this sign up and you're the listener, and the person is saying too much, for you to retain, you can just pause or whatever, give them a signal to pause. As a speaker, if you don't feel like you have been heard or they reflected back to you what you said, don't say I feel fully heard. Just say, that's not how I said or what I meant, or that's not what I said, and try it another way. That's okay. All right. So we have 4 minutes to speak. Any questions before we start? Yes, Dale.
I have a question as far as recommendations. If we're active listening, is it problematic if we write down and take notes? Because I don't want to interrupt someone, but I may want to refer back what they said so I can show that I'm listening. And I'm suffering TBI, being blasted in Iraq when I was deployed, so my memory is not as strong as. So
excellent question. Excellent question. Yes, excellent. When you're the listener, if you want to jot down what the person is saying, if that doesn't distract you, and if you're in the audience, you're not a listener or a speaker, but somebody says something that kind of resonates with your, in your spirit, and you may want to jot that down. So when it's your turn to speak, you can reflect back to, well, I heard Dale say, and then blah, 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 blah. Okay, but Dale cannot respond or answer your question or whatever. And even if Dale is the speaker and he asks a question, as the listener, all I can do is reflect back to Dale. Dale, I heard you ask a question about, whether that's a dove that's in the background on Arza, screen. I can't answer. So yes, people take notes. We take notes. And I'm probably the oldest one in this room. I take notes. Okay. So yes, that's a good question. Anyone else? So I will start off modeling how this works. I'm going to be the first listener, and I'm going to pick someone to be the first speaker. and you will have 4 minutes to speak. Give me time. And, you know, and again, speak in small chunks. You'll get the hang of it as we go around. And I'm going to reflect back to you what you said. Now, when your 4 minutes is up, with me being the listener, then I become the speaker and I pick someone to listen to me. And that's how we make sure everybody gets a turn. And do we need to take a break or do anything? Is everybody comfortable and ready to go? Okay, good. All right. The topic today is, when did you first realize empathy was important in your life? That's one question. Can you see yourself getting involved in the empathy movement? That's another question. Or whatever is on your mind today. Okay. So pick one. You got 3 choices there. I'm going to be the first listener. And let's, does anybody want to speak first? Okay. Andy, I don't know, you got that friendly face. So I'm going to you. So you can pick one of those or speak of whatever is alive for you. And are you ready? And
Yeah.
speak in small chunks? Okay. All right, you start.
Okay, so I don't know how, maybe it's about 3 or 4 years ago, and Edwin was organizing some empathy circles with Extinction Rebellion, which is a movement that I'm part of in the UK. And I joined one of those empathy circles, and I just thought it was amazing.
Okay. Andy, what I heard you say is that 3 or 4 years ago is when you met Edwin. He was doing the empathy circles, and it was something that you were involved in. It matched with something you were involved in the UK, the
Extinction Rebellion.
Extinction
Rebellion.
Oh, the Extinction Rebellion.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's really yeah, I want to talk about just my experience of waking up to the power of empathy through the experience of participating not just one time but several times in empathy circles during that phase of the movement that Edwin sort of started off.
Okay, and so you want to talk about how you're waking up to empathy, you know, in what everyone was doing, and your participation in that empathy circles or empathy process.
That's right. And I think that what really struck me was that when you're in a group like we are now, about this size, doing an empathy circle, and you start off with a question or a topic, gradually you move deeper and deeper, and you might lose the topic, but it doesn't matter.
Okay, and you found in participating that you start in a group like this, you start off with a topic, and as the circle moves, it can get deeper, and you may even stay on topic or get off, but the conversation gets deeper and deeper.
Yeah, exactly. And it's that going deeper, which is what really moved me. I'm a meditator, actually. And so going deep into consciousness is something that I'm familiar with. But the empathy circle was a way of going deeper with people that you'd never met before. And that was amazing.
Okay. What was amazing to you as a person that meditates is the fact that you can go deeper, and you were in the circle able to go deeper with people that you had never met before.
Yeah. And that experience of going deeper, it seems to me, is connected to the empathy, because when you empathize with another and that empathy grows, you open up to them. That's the point. You open up and you accept the mutual vulnerabilities of yourself and the other, and everybody benefits.
So when you go deeper with that person, you open up, and everyone benefits from that relationship or that engagement of going deeper.
Absolutely. And you overcome the feeling that we are accustomed to in our culture of being separate from everybody, and of people maybe being hostile to you. Anyway, fear of opening up. You overcome that and you discover that we've all got so much in common, and you just feel part of a group instead of feeling separate.
Okay, that going deeper is a way of connecting. It's a way of connecting, and you don't feel so alone.
2030.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm trying to do that. You don't feel so alone. You feel connected, and you feel like and going deeper, you have you find out you have more in common than you do different with the other person.
That's right. Is that my time? I didn't quite get it.
Yes.
Okay, thanks very much.
I'm sorry. Thank you. Okay. All
Thank
right.
you, Linda. Yeah, I felt heard, by the way.
Great. One of the challenges of being a facilitator is keeping time and participating at the same time. But that was good, Andy. That was good. Okay, as the listener, now I become the speaker. And I will speak to, does anybody want to volunteer to be the listener? Thank you, Edwin.
Listening.
Okay. I fell into and I tell people I fell into the empathy circle by accident.
So you want to tell people you fell into the empathy circle by accident?
Yes, I was looking for some information on empathy. I was, of course, using Google, our new version of the encyclopedia. And I came upon the culture for building empathy and participated and got hooked.
Yeah, so you just kind of stumbled across the empathy circle, and you started participating and just got hooked in it.
Yes, and you know, as a mediator, part of our training is to they call it active listening. There's actually a section on active listening, and I thought I was a good listener until I participated in the empathy circle.
Yeah, you thought you were a good listener, and then you participated in the empathy circle and was like, well, maybe not such a good listener.
Yes, because I was, as a mediator and as an arbitrator, when you're hearing both sides of the story, I was listening to not sometimes respond, a lot of times to ask questions for clarification. And by participating in the empathy circle and just shutting up and learning to listen, I found that some of the questions I had were answered if I let the person just continue to talk.
So as an arbitrator, mediator, you would like ask questions and so forth in the mediations. But what you found is just by listening that the questions would be answered. So you didn't even have to ask those questions.
Yes, and it does take you to a point of this listening, intentional listening, takes you to I want to say a gateway to empathy, because you do stop trying to respond and figure out what you're going to say next. And when I start listening to the person, I can actually see it from their point of view.
So the empathy circle is a real gateway to listening, because when you just stop and listen to them, you can really start seeing people's point of view.
Yes. And, you know, I have a favorite saying that, and I say it just about every time we have a circle, that understanding is not agreeing. So I just want to understand when I'm engaged with people professionally or personally.
Yeah, so you're just seeing that you just want to really understand people when you're engaging with them, and it's not agreeing with them, just trying to understand.
Yes. And some of the conversation that's been going on this morning really resonated with me, you know, saying, you know, explain where you're coming from, clarify where you're coming from, so I can understand your position or your perspective. And it also takes the pressure off of me of trying to convince somebody that they're wrong and I'm right.
So just by listening, it takes the pressure off. You don't have to try to convince them. You just focus on the listening.
Yes. And that's a big weight lifted from me, because I am opinionated, but I've learned to, unless asked, I don't opine. I just listen. And I find that people usually, as they talk, they work out their own dilemmas.
And just this approach, you've found that it really takes a weight off, because you don't have to tell them what to do, even though you are opinionated. That if you just listen to them, they sort of work out their own issues by themselves.
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you very much. And I feel fully heard. Thank you.
I'll speak to Arzu.
I will listen
okay.
to you.
Yeah, I really appreciated the discussion about the genocide at the beginning, of the summit part, because my parents went through something similar through World War II, and it's one of the motivations I have for doing this empathy work, is to kind of keep things like that from happening.
So this morning, you appreciate that one of the topic was the genocide, which your family had some connection with genocide. So you are happy that this is covered today.
Yeah. And it happened during World War II. There were children in World War II, and family members were killed and raped, and just like in Rwanda. And so just hearing those stories, that's one of the motivations I have for fostering empathy, because I think really a more empathic culture will keep that from happening.
As in World War II, people were refugees and they were raped. And these topics were covered today, and in the world, other parts of the world are suffering with the same similar
issues. Dilemmas. But it's the empathy, creating a more empathic society, I think, can keep like genocide and from happening.
Empathy is a tool keeps attached with this kind of topics.
And the other thing, I think I'm glad Dale is here, because I think he brought up the squirrel not being empathic. Somebody mentioned the squirrel story, and I think it was Dale who said, well, what about the squirrel? Is the squirrel empathic? And I think that's a really good point, because we're talking about mutual empathy, right? It's like, that's really important, is that all sides have empathy, and can we get squirrels to be empathic too?
So this morning, the story about the squirrels made you happy, because empathy is covering all sides.
Right. Yeah, a lot of times people see empathy as just one side, like one person does all the empathizing, but like in the empathy circle, it's mutual, right? We're doing mutual empathy. So, and squirrels can be pretty nasty in terms of stealing food and stuff, they go, yeah, so they can be a real problem.
So, I lost the logic. Well, this is my second language, you see.
Yes, you're doing great. Yeah, I hear your second language.
Very sophisticated and trying to capture all, but empathy. Oh, okay. So this morning with the squirrel story, we realized that empathy is more than between two people. It could be in the community. So that you are happy that it was covered this morning with
this. And the mutuality. It's like we need mutual empathy, not just one way empathy, but a mutual empathy is important.
You want to rise up mutual empathy, as it was mentioned today.
Yes, very much so. Yes, thank you. I feel fully heard. Thank you, Arzu.
Thank you for your support. So I guess I will be speaking to Dale, or shall I? Would that be okay? So I should be pausing my sentences. Well, empathy is said like empathy in Turkish.
So in
Uh,
Turkish, obviously, okay, now we know that you come from Turkey. So Arzu, you're saying that it's almost the same word. So probably has the same root in language. Empathy and empathy probably has the same origin in the meaning, probably from the Greek.
No, it's my.
Excuse me. Yeah, they'll just reflect back. Don't add to or what it just reflect back what she said.
Okay. All right.
Since empathy is the same word, consciously, we may not know the effect of empathy by meaning in Turkish-speaking people. Paul? Okay.
So, say we can't really, since it's the same word between English and Turkish, we're not really certain. We can't really be certain that people in Turkey have the same understanding of perception of empathy as it is in English.
Thank you. As you said, there is no root of empathy in Turkish language.
So in Turkish language, there's no linguistic root to the word empathy.
Yes. Therefore, consciously, we may not act the same way as English-speaking natives.
So consciously, Turkish people may not act the same way towards empathy as those who are English speakers.
Thank you. We may confuse sympathy with empathy.
Yes, I see how it would be easy to differentiate between empathy and sympathy.
So first time I realized that after COVID, when I attended non-violence communication courses.
So you learned that by your education through taking communication courses.
Non-violence communication.
Oh, specifically nonviolence communication.
Then I became aware of deep listening and empathy.
So then, why? We have a 6th person now.
Hi, sorry, I was.
You'd move me back to room 1. I guess I don't have control from it here. Should I give you?
I can't move you because you're the main host.
Oh.
So.
Can I give you host?
Sure.